The nightmare always came at the same hour, a merciless spectre that arrived just before dawn. Maurice Langford jolted awake, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs as the familiar, sun-drenched images faded. Lily's blonde hair catching the light as a gentle breeze swept through the pines, her father's weathered, capable hands helping her 9-year-old daughter into the camper, both of them waving goodbye, their smiles etched into her memory like a sacred text. The red digits on her bedside clock glowed 4:45 a.m. She sat up in the darkness of her Ashland, Oregon bedroom, pushing damp hair from her forehead. 7 years, 2,555 days since that camping trip, and still the dreams came with a regularity that felt like a chronic illness. Maurice wrapped her arms around her knees, a phantom sensation of Lily's last hug clinging to her like a shroud. A sharp, authoritative knock at her front door made her jump, the sound an alien intrusion in the pre-dawn stillness. Another knock, more insistent, was followed by a muffled voice calling her name. "Mrs. Langford? Maurice Langford?" She grabbed her robe from the chair, wrapping it tightly around herself as she padded to the front door, her mind racing. Who would be here at this hour? Through the peephole, she saw 2 figures under her porch light, one in a dark, practical suit, the other in the crisp brown uniform of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Maurice's hands trembled as she undid the locks. Agent Jonah Kessler stood on her doorstep, his FBI badge already out, a small, grim courtesy. Beside him, Sheriff Andrea Brody shifted her weight, her expression a mask of professional sympathy. "I'm sorry to wake you, Mrs. Langford," Agent Kessler said, his voice carrying the low, somber tone of someone delivering difficult news. "We've been trying to reach you." "My phone." Maurice glanced toward the kitchen. "I put it on silent last night. I'm sorry. What's happened?" The 2 officers exchanged a loaded glance. Sheriff Brody stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us. We've found your father's camper." The words didn't make sense. Maurice blinked, certain she'd misheard. "His camper? But that's... where?" "At Monticello Dam," Agent Kessler said. "In the Glory Hole Spillway." "In the... what?" Maurice's mind struggled to process the name. The Glory Hole Spillway at Lake Berryessa was that massive, surreal circular drain she'd seen in photographs, a concrete funnel designed to handle the reservoir's overflow. "I don't understand. How could a camper be in..." "Someone dumped it there," Sheriff Brody interrupted gently. "We believe within the last few hours. Emergency services are working to extract it as we speak. We need you to come identify it and some items that may be recovered." Maurice's legs felt weak. After 7 years of nothing, of dead ends and false leads and the slow, grinding erosion of hope, this sudden, violent development seemed surreal. Did you find... "We should discuss this on the way," Agent Kessler said. "It's about a 2-hour and 40-minute drive to Napa County. The extraction team hopes to have the camper out by the time we arrive." "I need to change." Maurice's voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Of course, but please, as quickly as you can." She dressed mechanically, jeans, a sweater, tennis shoes, her mind a blank slate of shock. The black sedan waited in her driveway, engine running. As they pulled onto the empty highway, the world still cloaked in darkness, Agent Kessler turned from the passenger seat. "I know this is a shock, Mrs. Langford. We received a call around 2 a.m. from a maintenance worker at the dam. He was checking water levels after last night's storm and spotted something metallic lodged in the spillway." "The storm," Maurice repeated. Last night's thunderstorm had been fierce, rattling her windows and flooding the gutters. "But how could someone... That spillway must be 70 feet across. How do you dump a camper in that?" That's what we're trying to figure out, Sheriff Brody said, her eyes on the road. Whoever did this knew the area well. They also knew the storm would create heavy water flow. We think they expected the camper to be crushed and swept through to the outlet. But it got stuck, Maurice said, the words barely a whisper. Lucky for us, Agent Kessler nodded. The angle, the size of the camper, something prevented it from going all the way down. They drove in tense silence as the sky gradually lightened from bruised purple to a soft, hopeful grey. Maurice watched the familiar Oregon landscape give way to Northern California's rolling, oak-studded hills. Her mind kept circling back to the sheer impossibility of it all. Her father's vintage Airstream camper, the one he'd lovingly maintained for decades, somehow ending up in a dam spillway, a metal ghost dredged from the depths. As they approached Monticello Dam, Maurice saw the police barriers first. Patrol cars and emergency vehicles clustered near the spillway viewing area. The morning sun had just crested the hills, painting the water in shades of gold and green. And there it was. Maurice's breath caught. The aluminum camper sat on the roadside, water still dripping from its riveted surface. Even from a distance, she recognized the distinctive shape, the rounded edges her father had polished every spring. But 7 years had not been kind. Rust streaked the once gleaming surface, and the windows were clouded with grime. A man in a Caltrans vest intercepted them. "Hell of a thing getting that out of there," he said to Kessler. He gestured to a massive crane still positioned near the spillway. The thing was wedged at about a 20-degree angle, like someone just backed it right up to the edge and let it roll in. Maurice stepped closer to the camper. Even damaged and waterlogged, it was unmistakably her father's. She could see the small dent near the door handle where she'd backed into it with her bicycle when she was 12. "The forensics team has already done a preliminary search," Agent Kessler said gently. "Mrs. Langford, I need to tell you we didn't find any human remains inside." She nodded, unsure if the feeling washing over her was relief or disappointment. "But we did recover several items." He led her to a folding table where evidence bags were laid out. Maurice's legs nearly gave out when she saw the red sweater. Even sealed in plastic, she recognized the purple floral embroidery on the sleeves, the one Lily had picked out herself at the craft store. "That's Lily's," she whispered. "And this?" Agent Kessler held up another bag containing a photograph. The image was water-damaged, the colors bled, but it was still visible. Her father and Lily, standing in front of the camper, both grinning at the camera. Lily wore the same red sweater. Her father had his arm around her shoulders, a look of pure, grandfatherly pride on his face. Maurice's tears came then, hot and sudden. "There's also this." Sheriff Brody showed her a digital camera in another evidence bag. "Do you recognize it?" Maurice wiped her eyes. "Number, my father didn't use digital cameras. He was proud of his old film cameras, always said digital had no soul." "Mrs. Langford?" Agent Kessler's expression was carefully neutral. "I know we've discussed this possibility before, but with this evidence, your father's camper, his belongings, items belonging to Lily, we have to consider that Thomas may have been involved in your daughter's disappearance." "He was 60 years old," Maurice said, her voice stronger now. "He's 67 now if he's... How could he take care of a child alone? How could he hide for 7 years? It doesn't make sense. We've seen cases of elderly individuals doing unexpected things," Agent Kessler said gently. As news vans pulled up beyond the police barrier, Agent Kessler prepared to make a statement. They pushed Maurice forward then, microphones thrust at her face. "Dad," she said, her voice breaking, "if you're watching this, please come home. Bring Lily back to me. We can still be a family." The return journey to Ashland was a long, silent crawl through afternoon traffic. At the police station, Agent Kessler led her to a conference room. "I'd like to review the case file with you while everything's fresh." He pulled up the original missing persons report on a large screen. August 18th, 2001. You called 911 at 8:47 p.m. They were supposed to be back by dinner, Maurice remembered. Dad was never late when Lily was with him. Officers were dispatched to the campground near Rogue River, Sheriff Brody read from the report. They arrived at 11:15 p.m. and found the designated campsite empty. Not just empty, meticulously cleaned. Crime scene photos filled the screen. The fire pit was cold and scrubbed, the ground swept clean. That level of cleaning suggested deliberate concealment, Kessler said. But my father wouldn't. "I know this is difficult," Kessler interrupted, pulling up a new document. "The same day at 2:15 p.m., your father entered First National Bank of Ashland and withdrew his entire savings, $400,000 in cash. Security footage filled the screen. There was her father at the teller window, and beside him, Lily, holding his hand, looking around with typical 9-year-old curiosity. Nothing in her body language suggested fear. "She said Mr. Langford seemed calm," Brody said. "Mentioned something about a business investment." Maurice studied her daughter's image. "He took her to get ice cream after bank visits. It was their tradition." The conference room phone rang. Sheriff Brody answered, then handed it to Agent Kessler. "Forensics?" "Yes, excellent." He hung up. "They've managed to access the memory card from the digital camera." In the basement tech lab, a young technician named Carlos greeted them. "Water got into the camera body, but these SD cards are tough." "I recovered 27 images." The photos appeared in a grid on his monitor. Maurice leaned forward, her heart clenching. There was Lily, building sandcastles by a lake, roasting marshmallows, laughing on a tire swing. She looked happy, healthy, and older than 9. "Check the metadata," Carlos said. "These were taken in 2005 and 2006. She would have been 13 or 14, Maurice calculated. "But this isn't my father's camera. He hated digital photography." "Unless he changed his habits," Kessler suggested. Maurice shook her head. Her father still used a rotary phone. The idea felt fundamentally wrong. That evening, Maurice stood at her mailbox. Bills, advertisements, and a plain white envelope. No return address, no postmark. Just her name, written in careful script. She tore it open. A single sheet of paper fell out, along with a black cassette tape. She picked up the letter, her hands trembling as she recognized the handwriting. It was Lily's, but more mature, the letters larger, the style evolved. "Mum, I will see you again soon. Please listen to Grandpa. He is a kind person. He just wants what's best for me. If you don't listen to him, then we'll never meet again." Ella, not Lily. The threat at the end felt alien, cold. What had 7 years done to her little girl? She picked up the cassette tape. She had to know what was on it. Her father's house. He would have a player. The house was a time capsule, smelling of dust and abandoned spaces. She found the cassette player on a shelf in the living room and pressed play. Static, then a voice that stopped her heart. "Maurice, sweetheart, it's Dad." She sank onto the couch. It was him, unmistakably him. "I know you're confused and angry. I don't blame you. But Lily is safe with me. She's happy, healthy. I had my reasons, good reasons. For now, I need you to stop the police investigation. Tell them you want to move on. If you do this, we can reunite. To prove you're willing to trust me, stay at my house tonight. Just tonight. If you can show that faith, then we can take the next step." The tape clicked off. She played it again, then again. She found a shoebox of his old recordings, folk songs, speeches, and compared the voices. They were so similar. The new recording was slightly heavier, more gravelly, but that could be age. She found herself believing. God help her, she was starting to believe. But then she remembered the digital camera. Her father kept the box for every electronic device he owned. There was no camera box in his office, so maybe he hadn't bought it. Maybe someone else had put it there, someone who wanted the police to believe her father was the culprit. The tape's message echoed, "Trust him. Stay the night." Every instinct screamed to call Agent Kessler, but what if her father was telling the truth? What if going to the police meant losing Lily forever? She made her decision. She would stay. She would give her father this one chance. The nightmare released her at 5 a.m. in the unfamiliar guest room. Nothing had happened. No knock, no call. The house was silent. On impulse, she found her father's old Sony Walkman in a bedside drawer. She put fresh batteries in it, and it whirred to life. She sat in her car in the driveway ready to go home, and put the cassette in, slipping on the headphones. His voice was more intimate now, as if he were sitting right beside her. And then at the very end, after he said his last words, there was something else. A split second before the tape clicked off. Another voice, male, younger, saying what sounded like, "That's enough." Her eyes snapped open. Someone else had been there. Someone had told her father to stop the tape. The implications were dizzying. If someone was controlling her father, then everything changed. She made her decision. She reversed out of the driveway and headed for the police station. 3 blocks from her house, she noticed a dark pickup in her rearview mirror. It followed her, turn for turn. It surged forward, forcing her onto a dirt road, blocking her path. A woman stepped out, medium build, dark hair in a severe ponytail. "Roll down your window," she said. A knife flicked open in her hand. "Get out of the car." The woman, whose name she would later learn was Colleen, zip-tied her wrists with brutal efficiency, stole her phone, and pushed her into the passenger seat of her own car. They drove for hours, heading back toward the Coast Range. "You're going to call your FBI friend," Colleen ordered. "Tell him you're done with the investigation or your family won't live through this." Her hands bound, Morris fumbled with the woman's phone, dialing Kessler. "Agent Kessler?" she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "I'm pulling back from the investigation. Finding the camper gave me the closure I needed. I believe my father took Lily and won't harm her." "Mrs. Langford," Kessler's voice was sharp with worry. "This is a criminal investigation. Are you in some kind of trouble?" Colleen snatched the phone, removed the battery, and flung the pieces out the window. They turned onto smaller, more remote roads, climbing into mountains Morris didn't recognize. They pulled up to a derelict cottage. Another car sat in the overgrown driveway. "Stay here," Colleen ordered. She got out and approached the other car. A man stepped out, lean and weathered. Their angry voices carried on the mountain air. "Colleen, what the hell have you done?" The man, Roy, yelled. "You're basically leading the cops straight to us." "I was worried. They found the camper. It didn't get stuck like you planned." "You did all this without consulting me?" Roy's voice was dangerous now. "How stupid can you be?" He pointed at Morris. "Get rid of her. I'm taking the girl and leaving." Morris's heart stopped. Lily was here, in Roy's car. Her hands were tied, but her feet were free. Moving carefully, she slid across the console into the driver's seat. The key was still in the ignition. She stomped the car into reverse. Roy and Colleen snapped their heads up, forgotten. Maurice cranked the wheel, shifted into drive, and slammed her foot on the accelerator. They dodged directly into her path. The impact was horrible. Both bodies flew backward. They were hurt, groaning, but alive. She stumbled out of the car and ran to the cottage, bursting into the dim kitchen. She knocked a butcher knife from a block on the counter. Kneeling, her hands still bound, she sawed the zip tie against the blade until it snapped. An old rotary phone hung on the wall. She dialed 911. "Help, please!" she shouted, hoping the dispatcher could hear. "Mountain Cottage! Kidnapping!" She ran back outside. Roy was on his feet, limping toward his car, toward Lily. Morris kicked him hard in the back of his injured leg. He went down with a cry of rage. "Give me your car keys!" she said, standing over him, the knife shaking in her bloody hand. Roy laughed, a terrible, unhinged sound. "You're the one who abandoned her, left your little girl with an old man. What kind of mother does that?" He lunged. They struggled, Roy using his greater strength to turn the knife back toward her. In one vicious motion, he drove it into her stomach. The pain was immediate, overwhelming. Her legs gave out. Through a haze of shock, she watched him limp to his car, shove Colleen away, and start the engine. The car lurched forward. That's as far as he got. Sirens screamed through the trees. Police cars materialized, blocking the road. She saw uniforms converge on Roy's car, saw them pull him out, heard the satisfying click of handcuffs. Colleen stumbled toward her. "I hope you die," she hissed, "just like your father." Then she drove the knife deeper into Maurice's wound. The world faded to the sound of sirens and urgent voices. All she could think about was Lily, still in that car, still just out of reach. She woke to the rhythmic beeping of a hospital monitor. A nurse smiled down at her. "Welcome back. You've been quite the fighter." She'd been in a coma for 3 days. The stab wound had been severe. They'd had to remove a kidney. Agent Kessler and a local detective, Nuran, arrived soon after. "We recovered Lily from Roy's vehicle," Kessler said gently. "She's 15 years old now, Mrs. Langford. Your daughter is alive." Tears flooded Morris's eyes. "Where is she? How is she?" "Physically, she's okay. CPS has her in temporary custody. She's been asking about you." Slowly, the truth spilled out. Roy and Colleen Barron were in custody. "Let me tell you what really happened in 2001, Kessler said. "Your father and Lily encountered Roy Barron at their campsite. He was hunting. She looked almost exactly like his own daughter, who had died in a boating accident. The resemblance was uncanny. He tried to lure her away. When your father confronted him, Roy pulled a rifle. He forced your father to withdraw his savings, threatening Lily's life. Then he killed him. He brought Lily home and told Colleen their daughter had returned. Shocked and grieving, she went along with it. They kept her for 7 years, Maurice whispered. They told her you had sold her for retirement money, that no one was looking for her. They were paranoid, and fear made them reckless. That's why they tried to dump the camper." A soft knock interrupted them. A CPS worker entered, followed by a teenage girl, Lily. She was tall, her blonde hair long, her eyes guarded and older than her 15 years, but it was her. "Mom?" Lily's voice was uncertain, hopeful. "Oh, baby." Maurice held out her arms. Lily rushed forward, careful of the IV lines, and fell into her mother's embrace. They held each other, both crying. "They killed Grandpa," Lily sobbed. "Right after he got the money, he tried to protect me." "Shh, sweetheart," Maurice stroked her daughter's hair. "He loved you so much. We'll find him. We'll bring him home." Justice would come. There would be trials, therapy, a long road of healing. But right now, in this hospital room, with her daughter warm and alive in her arms, Morris felt something she hadn't experienced in 7 years. Hope. "We're together again," she whispered. "That's what matters." Lily pulled back, a small, fragile smile appearing on her face. I'd like that, Mum. I'd really like that. The sun slanted through the hospital window, painting golden squares on the white blanket. Mother and daughter held each other. No longer lost. Finally found.